we ready to go?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome everybody, those that are in the room and also to those that are online. This is hopefully the first in a series of policy dialogues that we have in what is the NTNU SINTEF Gemini Center on Global Impact. We're very happy to have started this Gemini Center and very happy to already start now some activities in order to engage more people in these dialogues. And we hope to have many of these. This is the first in the series from today. And as it was announced, it's about commenting on Norway's new Africa strategy. And we're happy to have here a lot of people that have had experience in working with partners in Africa from the two institutions, NTNU and SINTEF. And we will just now go into the program. We will first start with a presentation from Tekle, and I will introduce him in a bit, because he's also had a role in forming of the strategy with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Tekle, you are an associate professor at the Department of Teacher Education and a human geographer. And I would like for you to introduce yourself a little bit more of your research background and your experience.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Lily, and thank you for organizing this event. My name is Tekle Heimanuswoltamike. Tekle is how I introduce myself here. Since I have like tongue twisting long name. Like you said, I was involved in the. Like you mentioned that I was involved in the discussion on the Africa strategy, but it was just a fraction of the discussion of what was going on over the last couple of years, I think. So my name is Tekle, and I'm an associate professor at the Department of Teacher Education. And I kind of grew up here at the Department of Geography. I did my master's, PhD, and postdoc until summer of last year. And so I have also a 20% position here as a researcher. Today I will talk about the new Africa strategy. Apparently, it's not called Africa strategy any longer. As you can see on the right side of the slide, it has been the title of the strategy has been revised, and it seems like it's going to be a strategy for Norwegian engagement with African countries. Not the African, but it had a little bit of strong negative connotation when you call something Africa strategy. And this is a document that came out of a long discussions on how Norway should engage with Africa. There are like several reflections, and this was launched on the 19th of August. It's a couple of weeks now, at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Oslo, where I also attended. I got to attend the launching of the event, where you had Minister of Foreign Affairs and the State Minister. State Secretary for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs were also present, and we had a lot of people from all kinds of sectors, including from institutions in the African Union and several African countries, including the ambassadors that are based in Oslo. But there were also people from all kind of sectors, like research centers and civic organizations. The fundamental premises which this document, the strategy, is based, can be seen in the following ways. For example, you could, from the discussion during the launching event and the document, reading the document itself, you could see that Norway sort of like sees the continent's growing relevance in the global stage. That's the geopolitical relevance of the continent. You could also see, I think that comes from like the projections in terms of population growth, in terms of like the nature of the demography in the continent, that it's a young and growing population. You could also see that the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Norwegian state and actors can see the role that Africa has in an emerging new world order, where you have multipolar compared to the previous or the current world order, where you have like the US and the Western world as a predominant power. So Africa is in a way seen as a swing vote in the global stage in that sense. So like I think this was from the document. It says competition to win support from the continent has intensified. That's clearly stated in the document. And the the foreign minister also mentioned that during the launching event. He says more powers are competing for access to Africa, like to be a friend and to partner with Africa. And of course, as a lot of you probably know, critical minerals have made Africa like it has brought Africa into the center stage of discussion on in global development. So minerals are necessary for green transition, for all kind of progress in the world, are largely sourced from Africa, and that has made the continent quite relevant in the global stage. And of course, last but not least, migration. The concern over migration is also clearly apparent both in the document, but also in the discussions that took place during the process of developing the document. As you can see, this is from the first page of the strategy document, and it presents Africa as a continent on the move in all kind of ways, and it underlines the need for Norway to safeguard its interests and relationships with Africa, and the need to strengthen and change, sort of like adapt its relations with the continent in light of the change that I outlined earlier. So the strategy document recognized changes in Africa, like diversity in development trends in the continent, like social, economic, and other kind of trends in the continent. It recognized the opportunities, but it's also recognized the challenge that the continent faces and the challenge that the world faces beyond Africa. And it recognized that what can be done to bring Africa to its full potential. As you can see, this is also from second, third page of the document. Europe's neighboring continental south has substantial natural resources, which is a summary of what the document is about. On land and sea, its economies and markets are growing. Africa has the world's youngest and fastest growing population. Urbanization is widespread and rapid, and this is kind of the rationale for the development of the new document. And of course, it also goes into like what the critical challenge for the continent are, like conflict and armed conflict and violence, climate change, and all that are also outlined in the document, but also in the presentation during the document. So what is the strategy about? Like what does the strategy document look like? So the aim is, as it is stated in the document itself, is to strengthen political, economic, and economic cooperation with Africa through broad-based. These are like very normative terms that you would find in all kind of documents, but this is basically what the aim is. And tendency that I could see from the document, but also from the talks by the people in the launching event and the discussions, is that there is like a deep connection between foreign policy and development policy that the government wants. And you also see a shift from aid to trade that has been like widely talked about in both processes. So there are like several key areas that are outlined in the document, but also talked about. So you have like Norway would like to cooperate with Africa. Right, got to present Africa as one chunk here, but cooperate with Africa and African countries in reforming and promoting multilateral system international. And this is all over the documents. This is the underlying content that is throughout the document. It wants to promote, like cooperate on promoting political dialogue, cooperation in peace and security efforts worldwide, but also like on the African continent. Democratic development, human rights, and gender equality. And this is something that we, as academics, as research centers and higher education institutions, is of like greater interest in business and knowledge exchange and clean energy, which I think the SNITEF people here are probably very much interested in. And this is where I think a lot of the discussion about academic exchange, knowledge exchange, and student and all that kind of appears in the document. We have also as one of the key areas climate change, the environment, and food security, and health, which are like central in the document. So, like, to just give you what the document says about one of the areas, it's the education and knowledge exchange. It seems from the document here that Norway would like to maintain the kind of relationship that it had with like this academic collaborations and knowledge exchange programs that we had before, which over the last few years has largely been affected by the introduction of the fee and the introduction of language requirements and all that. It seems like there is reconsiderations being made in the new policy, and you could see that I think they even mentioned like specific examples of ongoing collaborations which they would like to use as examples of how to go about in future. But there are, of course, a lot of shortcomings. That's from my point of view in the document and in the discussions that I think are kind of missing. So it doesn't, even though the foreign minister and the document itself claim that they recognize the diversity of the continent, I don't think the recognition of diversity has any implication with the political diversity of the continent. It's largely about resource distribution. It's about cultural diversity and all that, but not the political diversity between, for example, genocidal Ethiopian regime and South African government, or the Nigerian government and the Rwandan government. So you don't see that kind of diversity in the discussion in the document itself. And this is sort of like consistent with how Norway has been trying to shape its relation with Africa over the last few years, as I have been following it myself. For example, on the slide on the right, you see that's a former foreign minister of Norway and the foreign minister of Ethiopia, and this is 2023 in February, and this is just on the morning next after the huge war that where like 1 million people were lost, and the foreign minister is saying that we are going to continue collaboration with this government that has killed close to 1 million people, and this is also not reflected in the document. That Norway doesn't seem to be shifting away from this kind of politics, where it presents itself as a friendly partner with governments like that. It doesn't really. The document doesn't deal with that kind of diversity in politics in the continent. And of course, that also has implication on the focus. There's a lot of talk about human. I mean, there is a few lines in the document about human rights and safeguarding human rights and consistency in applying in international laws. But I think the tendency in the document, because of the geopolitical change that Norway kind of started developing the document from, there is a tendency to, in this, which is also reflected in the rest of the Western world, that governments are going for a race to the bottom because they are competing with other powers that don't necessarily care about consistency in application of international laws and safeguarding human rights, and that's not a good thing for Norwegian government. And then, of course, we don't appear in the document. The diaspora, African diaspora here doesn't appear. I was luckily involved in some of the discussions here because of some people that wanted me to participate, colleagues and others, but there was no mechanism in the discussion to include people of background from the country, and it doesn't seem there is strong interest in. I mean, there is not clearly stated place in the document where the diaspora is considered as a vital partner in the process. And of course, practice is what will matter. So, will the Norwegian government keep the promises that it makes in this, for example, in safeguarding rights and strengthening multilateral organizations and all that? Will it keep that promise? And of course, is strengthening multilateralism in the interest of the people in the continent. Like I think it was some people who wrote an article recently following the publication of the document where they questioned the whole idea of multilateralism. Is it to whose benefit? Is how does the UN operate in contexts like Africa to claim that we need to strengthen this kind of the multilateral system in itself isn't functioning and working for people in places like where I come from. So that's something that is going to be problematic if Norway just pushes for implementation of what they think they're doing. And of course, when it comes to consistent, this is like clearly stated in the document. When it comes to consistency in applying international law and mechanisms, this was like whether in Ukraine or Palestine, Norway has been unequivocal in its criticism of violations of international, regardless of who is responsible, and mentions the two cases where it has kind of like clearly taken a stand. But so far, that doesn't. This is like the only places where we have seen like Norway having a clear stand against violations. Norway doesn't apply the same thing when it comes to Africa, for example. And I have a reason to say that. The position that and then of course the foreign minister during the launching event also repeats the same and says the position that we have taken in Ukraine and Gaza has helped us in mediation of local conflicts in Africa. And that doesn't bode well with me, who have been following this crisis in Tigray for like the last 4 years, where Norway has clearly failed. And I have been trying to get Norway to recognize. And if this is how Norway sees itself, it's going to be very problematic. And if it raises questions about race and what doesn't come into the calculation here if Norway continues like that. But overall, the new strategy includes important proposed steps by the state to strengthen relations with Africa. It's quite normative, as you would expect from a strategy document like this. You don't have details, even though sometimes like they jump from like very strategic stuff to very detailed, like the examples I was reading earlier. It's a very normative document. Much of what is stated now is not new, has been in the previous documents as well. The like unique and new aspect now is that Norway is clearly concerned about the shifting geopolitics, like that there are emerging powers competing for access to political support and resources in Africa. As such, the focus is on political institutions and institutions and structures and not people, and that really concerns me. Like the foreign minister says, standing here, like we're responding to what we hear from African governments, and that's something we need to discuss about. Yeah, I'm going to end it with maybe some points of discussion, like what is in it for us, like for citizens as citizens, but also as research institutions and higher education institutions. What role should we play? Should we, as in the past, should we follow what the foreign ministry has said, or should we be a little bit more critical? Should we how should we engage with this document and with these practices ahead? That's it.